We're back!
Pixel Peak has returned for a second season, and we're glad you could join us for our first episode of 2019.
To kick off the new year, we have a lot of news to catch up with.
One story we're looking at is the change in Metro Exodus's release on Steam.
We're also reporting on some announced changes to the benefits included for PlayStation Plus subscribers.
Of course, we have to talk about that new Smash Brothers patch that brought us the new DLC fighter, Piranha Plant.
Speaking of Nintendo, we have our Nintendo analyst with us to talk about Metroid Prime 4's recent development.
And even more Nintendo is in this week's editorial, where our third host, Bobby Agins, will talk about the company's transparency with its fans.
We'll move away from Nintendo at the end of today's episode to look at Capcom's release. Stay tuned for a game review of Resident Evil 2 by our reviewer, Logan Berg.
Enough previews. Let's jump right into the news, and we hope you enjoy your stay here
on Pixel Peak. The Metro series is finally seeing the release of a third installment on February 15th, and in a blow to the previously omnipotent Steam, the game will not be coming to Valve's online storefront when it launches. Epic Games partnered with Metro developer Deep Silver on January 28th to announce that the game would be exclusively available on the Epic Games store until a year after its initial release. In a post on Metro Exodus Steam's page, Valve said, "We think the decision to remove the game is unfair to Steam customers, especially after a long pre-sale period. We apologize to Steam customers that were expecting it to be available for sale through the February 15th release date, but we only were recently informed of the decision and given limited time to let everyone know." Fortunately, for those that pre-ordered the post-apocalyptic shooter on Steam, Deep Silver will honor those purchases, and Metro Exodus will work on Steam for these customers. However, the game will not be available for anyone else on the platform until February 14th of 2020. In the meantime, this looks like it might be the first major event in the online store wars that kicked off when Epic and Discord announced significantly more developer-friendly revenue-sharing practices late last year. Whereas Steam typically takes a 30% cut from developers, Epic will only be taking 12% and Discord 10%.
After the Belgian Gaming Commission declared that loot boxes were considered gambling in the country in May 2018, Electronic Arts looked into taking the decision to court. On January 29th, though, the company announced that it would stop selling FIFA points in the country. In a statement on their website, EA announced that it had discussed the issue with Belgian authorities and decided to end the sale of FIFA points on January 31st. Players that have previously purchased points will still be able to use them as normal, but they will be unable to purchase any more on consoles and PC after the end of the month. All of the content available through FIFA points is still accessible to players through gameplay, but the grind to get it will lengthen, as players will no longer be able to pay for packs. EA defended the previous inclusion of FIFA points in its statement, saying, "We seek to bring choice, fairness, value, and fun to our players in all our games. In addition to providing players options in how they play, we include pack probabilities in our games for the transparency players want to make informed content choices. While we are taking this action, we do not agree with Belgian authorities' interpretation of the law, and we will continue to seek more clarity on the matter as we go forward."
After Detroit Become Human launched last year, a lot of companies have been keeping their eye on the infamous developer, Quantic Dream. Both Detroit Become Human and Heavy Rain were revolutionary titles for their time, in graphics and in concept. This vision for the future of games convinced NetEase, a huge Chinese internet company, to invest in Quantic Dream last Tuesday. NetEase hasn't disclosed how much it put into Quantic Dream, but considering that it invested $100 million into Bungie, the developers of the Halo and Destiny series, the amount was probably nothing to laugh at. The vice president of NetEase, Ethan Wong, released an official statement in regard to the event. Quantic Dream's excellence in interactive storytelling and the valuable expertise it has built over the past 2 decades is exactly what we have been looking for, Wong says. We are pleased to partner with Quantic Dream, and we hope to create incredible game experiences for players all around the globe. Hopefully, this means the return of even more impressive games for the quickly approaching next generation of game consoles.
It is with heavy hearts that we here at Pixel Peak inform you that the Wii Shop channel closed its doors permanently on Wednesday. The shop turned 12 years old in December, and while Nintendo halted the sale of Wii points earlier last year, players were still able to re-download games that they had previously purchased. The shop was home to streaming services and Wii-themed novelties, but most importantly, it was the birthplace of the now-defunct Virtual Console. Virtual Console was the massive library of older Nintendo games, and it was the medium through which Nintendo exclusively dealt in legacy content, from the Wii years through the release of the NES Classic. We talked about this in episode 1 of Pixel Peak. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Now, there is no way to download a purchased but uninstalled game on Wii consoles. All undownloaded content is as good as gone, and it's resulting in increased tension between Nintendo and fans, as well as digital conservationists. In 2019, it's more troublesome to get a hold of Nintendo's legacy content than it has been in years. Nintendo only offers a handful of NES games on the Switch, and as of now, it hasn't officially announced that any more are on the way. Nintendo is also waging an ongoing war with ROM sites and won lawsuits against 2 in 2018. With the death of the Wii Shop, one more well for Nintendo games has dried up, making it that much harder for players to get their hands on them. Despite the death of the store, the Wii Shop's music will live on forever, and we can all take solace in that.
In another piece of Nintendo news, Smash Ultimate's version 2.0 released on Tuesday, and with it came the long-anticipated arrival of the game's first DLC character, Piranha Plant. Piranha Plant is a slow, heavy-hitting fighter that operates around a few projectile attacks and an incredibly sketchy stem. When Piranha Plant obtains a final smash, they summon PD Piranha and trap enemy fighters in cages like they did in Subspace Emissary of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. All is not well with the arrival of Piranha Plant, however, as many players that purchase Ultimate before the cutoff date for the promotion haven't gotten their codes for the fighter. Others have codes, but are running into errors that keep them from playing the character, and those that are able to access the character are having more severe problems. SSBU News, an account not affiliated with Nintendo, reported that some players are seeing their save data corrupted after playing All-Star Mode with Piranha Plant. Twitter user Zawanda Gibbs responded to the tweet saying, "Happened to me. It's legit. Lost 130 hours." According to users on the Smash Bros. Reddit, the problem can also be caused by using Duck Hunt and Mii Swordfire in Century Smash. The bug isn't universal, as some people have played without issue, but it's probably better to be more safe than sorry until this gets sorted out.
Every month, subscribers to PlayStation Plus get to download a few free games for whatever PlayStation systems they own. For February, the PS4 sees the release of the competitive Ubisoft medieval game For Honor and the complete season of the 2016 IO Interactive Hitman title. In addition to these games, the PlayStation team decided to throw in a little surprise: more cloud storage. For all PlayStation Plus users, the included 10 gigabytes of online storage is being expanded to 10 times that size, 100 gigabytes. Theoretically, this means PlayStation Plus users could have entire games stored online without also being subscribed to PlayStation Now. All's not sunshine and rainbows, though. Those that tuned into these announcements also saw that PS3 and PS Vita games would no longer be included in the PlayStation Plus benefits, making Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, and a trio of Vita games the last free offerings for these systems. After discontinuing production of physical games for the PS3 and Vita last year, it seems that PlayStation is moving forward with bigger plans. And now, we'll move on to our analysis segment.
Nintendo really dropped the Morph Ball in this week's Metroid Prime 4 announcement.
And we have our Nintendo analyst, Zack Beasley, here to talk about it.
So Zach, Metroid Prime 4 was first announced at E3 2017, but now it's scrapped and delayed. What exactly is going on?
Okay, so it's not scrapped. It is delayed though. The person in charge of Nintendo's overseeing development of many of Nintendo's projects, Shinya Takahashi, in almost like a Nintendo Direct, gave a development update, and they aren't really satisfied with the way that the game was developing, how it was panning out. It didn't look like it was going to be up to the quality that they were satisfied with and what was going to make consumers happy. So they decided they were going to scrap 2 years of development. And so yeah, they're starting from scratch, or so they say.
What do you feel was the necessity of the delay?
if you had to tie it to something in particular, it would probably be the lukewarm reception of the past few Metroid games. Metroid Prime Federation Force specifically, a lot of people were really upset that that even had the Metroid name. Some could argue that it got the Metroid Prime name simply because that would mean it would sell more. Because if you look at the gameplay, and it almost looks kind of like an eShop digital title or something like that. And then while Samus Returns was it was a fun game, it was simply just a remake of a Game Boy game, Samus Returns. And so I think that Nintendo wanted to do right by customers and their fans of the Metroid series by saying, all right, let's make this perfect, or at least let's outdo ourselves. Make sure this is going to be the Metroid Prime game that fans have been waiting for almost over 10 years, I'd say.
So Zach, can you exactly just walk through Kristen and I about the idea of Retro Studios' history with the Prime series?
Yeah, so Retro Studios is the company that is now overseeing the development of the game. And Retro is the company that worked on the first 3 Metroid Prime games. And a lot of people are really excited about that, but I think others are more skeptical once you dig a little bit deeper. A lot of the people that worked on the Prime series, they're gone. There's only 3 or 4 of the team members that are still like on the team, and they're missing, I would say, a pretty integral part. I think his name is Keenan Pearson. He was the level designer for the Metroid Prime series. He's no longer there, and you're just missing a lot of like engineers and the heart and soul of the Prime series. But the exciting thing is Kinsuke Tanabe. He's overseeing the development of all the Prime games. He has stayed with Retro throughout this whole saga. That while many of the members have left Retro to go work on other games, specifically like I think it was Batman Arkham Origins, like the Blackgate or the Blackgate game. He stayed on, Mr. Tanabe, and so there is optimism. Somebody who's actually like been in the works with the game is still going to be there, but the people surrounding him, it feels like they only serve in like a really minor role, and so there's optimism because there's some familiarity, but you're missing a lot of the key parts.
So what was the reception of some of the other Metroid games?
The Prime games, me personally, I love them to death. I think out of all of them, not including Federation Force, which like got University Pan, there's no Samus. I think there's like a Samus outfit, like Samus Aran. The Metroid Prime games themselves, though, they're really enjoyed. It was almost like the jump from 2D to 3D for Mario when he went to Mario 64. The transition from, I think the last game before Prime was maybe Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion. So it took like a huge jump from 2D to a 3D first-person game, and they were pretty well enjoyed. 3 is a little bit weird. They made a transition to the Wii, and so swapping over to motion controls using a nunchuck, I think it received a little bit of critical reception. It wasn't widely loved, but I found it to be a lot of fun.
Gotcha. So Zach, can you exactly explain to me how this delay from Nintendo compares to other developers doing delays?
It's very personal in a way that other companies don't really do. Because Mr. Takahashi, he oversees the development of games, they made a video just for it. It's very personal. Sometimes you just get a tweet or a press release, and so this was very nice to see them taking care and talking to us personally about like.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I think that covers it. Zach, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
We really appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bobby Eggins, and I've grown a beard to show the passage of time. Let's get to this week's editorial. On Tuesday, Nintendo released the latest patch of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for Switch, and it marked the dawn of a new era for the franchise. No, not Piranha Plant. Okay, yeah, Piranha Plant. But I'm also talking about the 2.0 version of Smash Ultimate being the first update in series history to have character adjustment details clearly explained in the patch notes. Previously, when Smash updates dropped, character tweaks and rebalances had to be uncovered by the players, who compared updated versions of the game to versions past. It was a slow, laborious process that made keeping up with the game difficult without the help of others. The new patch notes mark another step in a long line of welcome changes that Nintendo is bringing to the table these days, all of which revolve around improved communication with the community. When Smash Ultimate first released, the online matchmaking left a lot to be desired. Searches were based off of players' preferred settings, but they weren't prioritized very highly, which often resulted in players being unable to consistently play with the settings they chose. Nintendo listened to the community's request for a change in matchmaking and raised the priority level that preferred settings got. After that got figured out, they kept on listening to players and adjusted their patch note practices when players asked for that. Nintendo doesn't have the best track record when it comes to community relations, often opting to stay quiet and weather the storm when fans began clamoring, but as of late, they began taking steps like these to slowly become a little more open with consumers, and it's improving relations on both sides. When the company seemingly ghosted the world on a January Nintendo Direct and reappeared to tell us that Metroid Prime 4 was getting scrapped and restarted, it seemed like the reaction might have been a little scary. Gamers are a loud and unforgiving bunch, and developers and publishers alike often find themselves on the other end of angry mobs on the internet. The internet didn't explode with vitriol, however. Instead, Nintendo's bittersweet announcement was received with understanding and excitement. Of course, no one is happy that Prime 4 got delayed, but the transparency that Nintendo offered with its developer update brought it a lot of understanding from its player base. In contrast, well, look at how things are happening over at Bethesda with Fallout 76. Despite releasing in November of last year, the game is still the butt of all kinds of jokes, and the vast majority of the press coverage it sees remains negative. This is largely in part to Bethesda releasing what many players called an unfinished game, and what no player can deny is a buggy mess more often than it isn't. Couple that with Bethesda's poor communications with its community and the issues around the Power Armor edition of Fallout 76's duffel bag, and the developer has found itself in perpetual hot water for the last 2.5 months. Nintendo is taking another route, however. The company is increasing communication with fans, and in turn, fans are responding with understanding. Sometimes it may seem like perfectly kept secrets with surprise releases are the most exciting things a developer can do, but being transparent with players is really the best way to keep them around and happy. And now I'll hand it over to Logan Berg for this week's game review.
Something has risen from the dead, a ghoul from the distant era known as the 90s, where 18 polygons constituted good character design. It's Resident Evil 2.
A remake of its namesake, Resident Evil 2 stays true to its roots as a survival horror game set in the beleaguered Raccoon City and its police station. Published and developed by Capcom, Resident Evil 2 is powered by the appropriately named RE engine utilized by Resident Evil 7. And it shows. Far flung from the graphics of its predecessor, Resident Evil 2 looks amazing. From the opening cutscene itself and the chaos of early game, I was fully immersed in the reimagining of Raccoon City. And of course, I've got to talk about our protagonists, Leon and Claire, both of whom look fantastic. Their redesigns are a great modern take on their prior models. Furthermore, Capcom's attention to detail really impressed me when it came to the progression of your appearance. A few hours into the game and Leon's look definitely reflects the rough night. And what a night it is. For those unfamiliar with the premise, Raccoon City proves to be ground zero for the zombie apocalypse just as our two protagonists arrive. I say two because at the game's start you have a choice between Leon Kennedy, a newly minted Raccoon City police officer, and Claire Redfield, a college student looking for her brother Chris. Naturally, this decision leads to pretty different experiences that intersect, and that's a great way to make players work to find out the big picture of what's going on. Coupled with Capcom's promise of 3 free story DLCs coming out in the future, Resident Evil 2 offers a lot of different accounts of some harrowing experiences. What are those experiences, you may ask? By far the largest departure from the original, Resident Evil 2 takes on the gameplay of later Resident Evil titles such as the fourth entry. Say so long to fixed camera angles and tanky controls because this game offers pretty slick third-person gameplay, but don't think that it detracts from the horror. Even with the freedom of your camera, the claustrophobic halls and mysterious nooks of the Raccoon City Police Department keep you on your toes. Sure, as you explore, charting out rooms, unlocking shortcuts, and solving puzzles, you'll be backtracking often, but you'll learn not to get too comfortable. I learned this the hard way as I barreled through a shortcut I've been through numerous times, only to run into another enemy. Although zombies may be the face of the series, the roster of enemies you'll encounter is a bit more expansive. From skinless lickers to infected canines to things far more powerful, you'll find yourself assailed by a growing list of creatures who will begin to populate the map. As you progress, there's even boss segments with some pretty unique abominations. Progression is one of the key words I'd use to describe how satisfying the gameplay loop of Resident Evil 2 is. For every obstacle you encounter, whether a missing item or a code, there's always a aha moment when you find just what you need. Oh, bolt cutters? I needed those over there. An extended magazine for my pistol? Now I can waste less inventory space. This plays hard into the survival elements of the game as well. I can't tell you the number of times I ran out of ammunition and found myself running scared looking for my next score of gunpowder. You're gonna have to fight to stay alive, and every little bit of progress feels important. This rewarding experience is no doubt why people enjoyed the original, and I have to give kudos to Capcom for porting that feeling to the remake. Whether you're a die-hard fan since the very first game, or someone brand new to the series, Resident Evil 2 appeals to the universal desire for accomplishment. If you're someone who enjoys the process of putting pieces together and building something greater out of them, then this game is a beautiful, gore-filled mosaic waiting for you. And that's why Resident Evil 2 is truly a top-of-the-mountain gaming experience.
Resident Evil 2, a reanimated corpse that's held up surprisingly well despite its age. Capcom, please keep it up and resurrect Resident Evil 3 next. And now, Kristen and John Luke, take it away.
We hope you enjoyed our first episode of Season 2. We couldn't have done it without our wonderful cast. Thanks to our Nintendo analyst Zack Beasley, writers Tanner Mazzell and Mack Stein, associate producer Caitlin Halley, and producer Kyle Presley for making this episode possible.
You can join us next week since we go live on Saturdays at 2 p.m. on AppTV and on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PixelPeak AppTV.
Thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed your stay here on Pixel Peak.
Brian Little.